Keith Simmons, 30 years veteran trader, New York Mercantile Exchange. Can you introduce yourself, Keith?
Sure. So again, my name is Keith Simons. The I've been a trader since 1989 when I went on to the Mercantile Exchange. I started out as a clerk working for a firm. The gentleman's name was Mark Fisher, who had the largest clearing firm at the New York Mercantile Exchange. And I ran an order desk there and really worked my way up, a little bit through the ranks and was involved with uh, doing access, which was the very first electronic trading for crude oil overnight. Because a big problem, that with trading back in the day was there was only a certain time that the trades went on, and then you would have to either trade overnight in London or just wait for the next day, and anything could happen. And when things were sort of hostile in the early 90s, uh, that was a problem. And the solution that they were working on, they finally came up with was a thing called Access, and this basically gave the 24-hour trading, via a screen that would also reflect what was going on in the ring. And it was new, and basically it was the beginning of the whole electronic trading platforms that were out there. And but the floor was something that I learned and I loved about. And it was a very physical, it was mental, it was a very advantageous place. And you learned pretty quickly how to survive. And again, you're dealing with world markets. You're dealing with crude oil. That if something happened, in Saudi Arabia, things that happened in storms, things that happened anywhere in the world would basically affect the price of the market, and not just in crude oil and natural gas, but also metals. I traded gold, I traded silver, platinum. As I ran a desk, I basically traded every commodity that there was. So my lifespan down there lasted about, close to 25 to 30 years, on and off the floor. And unfortunately, the floor closed, uh, basically operations and everything went electronic back in probably right, officially closed 2016, but really everything was sort of done by 2013, 2014. And, everybody sort of transitioned to another direction. And the people that could still survive and off the floor trading, like myself, we, end up doing a lot more technical analysis and getting involved in equity trading. And because it was just very hard to trade the futures. It was basically, just a shot in the dark half the time now because our edge was taken away. They didn't need us anymore. And the same thing happened to the stock market. The stock market doesn't have really any brokers on the floor. They have stuff for show, but everything is done electronically. So that's been my career. I actually also got involved in private equity, and I've been involved in trading IPOs and different offerings throughout the years. So it's been a great run. Again, it has its ups and downs like anything, but I consider myself a professional trader. And every day I get up and I do my analysis, and I can see I hit the computer and I'm here all day. So I'm very it's been a great experience. And
What's
uh,
your favorite pair to trade back
my
then?
favorite, I'm sorry.
No. Your favorite, you said you trade commodities. Any particular
Yeah, so
asset?
my I still love trading natural gas. I've been, basically it's what you know best. Crude oil, natural gas. Again, uh, it's basically going to stay in a certain range now. In the past, things would expand even more the prices, but it's a game that is, from experience, you sort of sort of can feel which way the direction's going to be, and it becomes like a second sense. Uh, Different geopolitical things, are move the market, but also our environment, and it just becomes second nature to you. And may not be right all the time, might not be wrong, but it's something that I personally feel that it's never going away. Crude oil and these
Mhm.
energies. That this is something that the world needs on a daily basis.
Do you have you recently tried? It's got a seasonal component, doesn't it? Like natural gas.
Yes, yeah, natural's definitely seasonal. Uh, every the commodities itself, have been there's an abundance, right now. There's definitely abundance. So prices have been very low for natural gas. We definitely have an abundance where, the prices that were at one point were trading $15 is now still around the $2, $3 range. And it's been there for 10 years. Again, because we have so much in the ground that they actually burn it. There's so much natural
Yeah,
gas.
that's
But but seasonally, you're right. When it comes to storms, if it comes to hurricane season, uh, when it comes to just the weather, when if it gets super cold or if it gets super hot, people are going to use their air conditioners. Super cold, they're going to be using their using their heat.
when you said you said just now, right? Like that you had an edge trading on the floor that you feel you don't trading on the screen. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the human nature, we basically when you're on the floor, uh, you had a lease. You leased a seat, and so you
Yeah.
would go to work, and every month, people own the seats. And eventually, I became a partial seat owner, which was the smartest thing I ever did. But the what happens is you lease a seat, so you have the privilege to go onto the floor and stand in the ring in the actual pit, and then you have an account with a clearing firm, and then you can make the market. So you physically are sitting there with other guys, 200 other guys just like you, and you're seeing where the markets are. In futures, it's not just one market. There's months. Every month there's
Mm,
another contract. And
expiring.
so you could trade for 3 years worth of contracts. And it's just knowing where the value is. Now, what went on also was that there were orders that came through. And again, everything was done manually. So it was a clerk on a phone would get an order from somebody, let's say in Texas, to buy 500 natural gas at the market. And then the clerk would then hand the order into the ear of the broker who's standing on the top step. And then he would present, and let's say, would approach the market and be like December. We would give him a market, let's say one bid of 1.5. And then he would be like, if he had to sell 500, he would turn to the people who gave him the market and give us, and hand out the trades, And the thing is, there were so many people and so much competition. The quicker you were, the better you. And and sometimes it wasn't smart to be so quick. Sometimes you had to be patient and wait. If you were going for a certain direction, uh, but you got an edge because if let's just say someone did sell you something and someone else on the floor didn't get it and the market went up, well, then you got the edge for being there and being first in line.
So you were kind of reading their body reaction and then making
Oh,
trades.
totally. Yeah, you could, guys, you totally read
Oh my
them and
God.
they read you, and you just knew when, you just sort of knew the orders that, after you're there for years and years and years, when somebody's going to have a big order coming in, or if they keep going, you just know sort of you got a second feeling for how the market was going to move in that certain time period. And if somebody, you could just tell, if they had to sell a lot or if they had to buy a lot. You could just sell different things on a person to
Do they
understand.
ever fake it? They like
Of
try to get you
course,
to,
yeah.
yeah.
That was a big thing. I mean, people would, you know, orders would come in, and the same broker uh might get, one broker on one side of the ring. Maybe the client is using two different brokers, and he wants to sell it. So what he'll do is he'll have one broker, on one side, sort of, to start buying the market up, and then he'll actually have one of his brokers actually buying it too, and then but he's buying it to sell it. So as he's given orders to buy 300, at the market, and the market's going up, and everyone's thinking it's a bigger order, there's a guy on the other side that has the bigger order to sell maybe 1,000. So these guys would, you would try to figure it out. Yeah, you would get caught, but they played the game also, and
Well,
they would, rally the market to sell it, or they would dump the market to buy it. And it was, these are the energy companies, these were hedge funds, these were, Hess, these were, mobile, these were really, across the board, speculators, very big, hedge funds that, there was a thing called a roll where every month, a month would expire. And then you know how to play that in the last couple of days where they had to get out of the contract. And because in the thing with futures, if you own a contract
hmm.
at the end, you're the last man holding it. Unless you're the end user, you own that contract. And then you're going to have to go to a cash market to sell it if you want out. So it was so
Hmm.
important when we were on the floor to make sure that everything lined up and squared up so that you were flat at the end of that month of that contract, that you didn't have it on your books. Otherwise, you were having to deal with stuff after market, and it got very expensive.
You had to take delivery. You mean you had to like
You had to take
actually
delivery. Yes. Yeah. 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 Where are you going to bring, haul in a
oil
tanker
in the
to your
backyard? Like,
backyard?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no one ever did. I mean, the end users would always end up taking it, or but you'd have to pay it cash if something happened. I mean, again, there was a whole system, it was controlled chaos. Again, like I always refer to anybody, if they saw the movie Trading Places at the end with the orange juice and all the traders that were yelling and screaming, that was us. That's what we did. And people are like, how can you figure this out? But we did. We knew it. We were trained. We when I was learning how to do this, we had classes. You went every day and you picked up different tricks and how to count very fast, and just to, you had someone working for you. You had a clerk that was checking you. So as I would trade, I would then have my pad. I actually have a pad right here. Show it to you. These were these were our trading pads.
Huh.
So our names. So that was my badge. We all had badges, and I actually have my badge. This is my badge, Sims.
Nice.
So that
The
was my
Sims.
mercantile badge, and this was my gold and silver badge. It wasn't they lost it, so I had to get one with just tape on it. But that was the Comex. You got your green badge. Uh,
Hmm.
but this was my Merc badge, and so we would, what would happen is you would trade, and then you write it down on your pad,
Hmm.
buys and sells, and every time you sold something, you take this card, this pick card, you rip it out, and in the ring, there was a gentleman who sat in the middle, and he worked for the exchange. And then you would flip it like a card, just in the middle, go up in the air, come down, and he sat there and would just punch it, key punch it, like the timing. And it was only sales. Only when you put your sales in, did they look at it. And so what they would do then is take all these cards, wrap them up, take it to another runner. He would then take it, run downstairs to the key punch area, and then there would be a team of people down there that would just be key punching in trades. And then what would happen is you had a clerk who would then on a screen it would come up, get your copy of your pages, like 3 pages on each, and then they would check every trade and they would check it twice to make sure that you knew everything and the other opposite broker knew everything. If somebody didn't know anything, then you had a problem. Then you had to go up and discuss it with the other broker. And if you both knew selling something, and the market is a lot lower, now you have a problem. And then you would have to work out a situation in that. Somebody would have to buy something or just end up eating an error. It happened all the time. Errors happen constantly.
So
But
you might lose money because of somebody else's fault.
it's never someone else's fault. That's what you
Yeah.
always say. It's their fault.
Yeah.
But
Well.
that's that. You like to think that, but sometimes faults do happen. Sometimes brokers do orders backwards. Maybe the clerk wrote a buy order instead of a sell order and gave it to him, and then now the client's like, I bought 50. What do you mean? I said sold 50. And everything was recorded. So you would have to go back to the tapes and then listen to the tapes. And then, but you always got out of the error. Whatever the error was, you just got flat and worried about it, afterwards. And that was and it was a daily. I mean, listen, we were down there for 9/11 and, the hours changed then after that. I mean, they really
Hmm.
tightened up the hours after and which actually made it more efficient. Really, like anything, even with stock trading, the majority of the trading goes on from 9:30 to 11. The afternoon is pretty much sort of, sideways, and then stuff happens at the end of the day, maybe 2 o'clock on. But in the middle of the day, it's just if you look at any type of day activity, it's a
Hmm.
lot of
Even today.
sideways. Yeah, yeah. Today, I mean, there's some great moves in the morning, and now it's basically a lot of sideways. But my trading I do now, I'm on different group chats, talk to other traders, talk to a lot of guys from the Merc that were former traders when I was down there, and we throw ideas at each other, and that's the best about it. I mean, down there it was competition. You really,
Hmm.
you sort of like held things to your own. People, no one really, was as open as they are, I think, in the stocks because now we're all like, well, it's a computer. We're
Hmm.
just, it's an idea. We're not really competing with each other or anything.
Hmm.
We're all just trying to do well in that scenario.
How was it like? How was it like? So you mentioned you were on the floor on 9/11. How was it like on that day? Do you remember?
It was horrible. That was a very somber day. It was again like my experience of that. It was like everyone said, it was the most beautiful day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and I came in from New Jersey, take the ferry in every day, and I get there early, and I always walk out the ferry and I look up and I see the Twin Towers, and it's right at the World Financial Center. We used to be in the World Trade Center, and we moved to our own building across the street from the on the West Side Highway. We're literally across the street.
Mm.
And and that day I was walking up the stairs and I saw another broker. And he's at the window. He goes, "Oh my God, look at this!" And I look. He goes, "Oh, some plane flew into the towers." And I was like, "Oh my God!" But it wasn't, the first one. You're like, "Okay, this is a crazy accident." And then we're all sitting there, and then we're sitting in the office, and we could see down the Hudson, and all of a
Hmm.
sudden we see the other plane coming in. And we're like, oh my God, what's another plane? Like, what's going on? And it's coming low, and then it hit the other tower. Everything went black, all the lights, everything, and evacuate. And then, we were probably I was up like 12 floors, in the other building. So we came down. We weren't in any immediate danger. Went out uh to the World Financial Center, and there was the ferries, and sat there. We were all looking up, and it was horrible. And And then there was the ferry, was there, and people just basically bum rushed to get back to New Jersey. Uh, and the ferry dropped us off, just didn't, it was just going back and forth as fast as it could. Just dropped us off in, part of Jersey City that wasn't even where my car was, where we usually go to. And end up getting off the ferry, taking about 10 steps, looking over and watched both towers come down. And it was just shock. It was shock.
Wow.
And uh, you know, I actually ended up picking up about five, six guys I didn't know in my truck and just took them home. People were walking, they couldn't get to their cars, they had no way of getting home. Uh, and I just said to guys, "Hey, hop in, where you live." Took them down, and then as as we at the Mercantile Exchange, we were back 4 days later. They opened us back up. So now we all went back to work just because it was about stabilizing the price of energy and the
Mm-hmm.
gold market, and we were there for that, and they just that was the whole thing. Like, don't try to stabilize it. Don't let this situation people profit from it, and not because the last time this happened with the war, I mean the market moved, crude oil moved $6. This time it didn't
Yeah.
really move. It moved maybe $1. Really, it was everybody basically said, okay, just stay steady, you know. But we were more concerned about the guys, I mean, that we lost, that were in the towers, and friends that disappeared, and we lost. I think the Merc lost about 50 people that were working in the their offices or in the World Trade Center, and we still honor them, with everything. We
Mm-hmm.
still talk about it, and now we're all dealing with sort of some health issues, which is crazy, but it's just part of it right now. But yeah, no, we I remember like it's yesterday.
Wow. That's I didn't know you were on the floor. You never told. But wow, that's
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I went
wow.
outside and we were watching, we were watching some horrific stuff happen, like live. And then you start measuring yourself, going, okay, I got to get out of here because well, I'm just checking one thing here.
Yeah.
Uh you
Trader
gotta
Life.
well, you gotta, you when you're in there and you're sort of measuring if these towers come flying down, it's going to come and crush us. Now, I was also there for '93 when they bombed. Uh, they tried to do this the first time, and they blew up where the PATH train was, and that was directly underneath where I worked, right under our exchange. So it was the bottom floor, right under by four wheel, but under within the parking garage, and it basically blew a hole, below, but it didn't knock the building down. I felt that jolt, like that
Mm-hmm.
knocked us all like, out of our seat when that happened. Uh, and it was again, you don't realize it until you're there and these things happen, about us being, the center of the world, and people want to hurt us in that sense. And but again, the camaraderie, the Mercantile, the NYMEX guys, we were a brotherhood. We want to kill each other during the day, but we'll have a beer with each other, afterwards.
Yeah.
And again, as we all look at each other still today. It's like, we all know each other by our badge names,
Yeah.
but we're there for each other. We're very much uh, still, the traders, and the guys in Chicago. They're the same way. The guys that trade in Chicago at the Board of Trade and Chicago Mercantile Exchange. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
all those traders, basically felt the same thing.
It's incredible story. I can't imagine what it's like being there. Wow.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, listen, no, being a trader was great. Being there for 9/11 wasn't great. Uh,
Wasn't great.
no, that wasn't great. And again, sad things. the effects that a couple guys, I mean, around me, traders around me that have
But
passed too early.
y-
Because I mean, now after having getting cancer and a couple other issues,
the
respiratory is
yeah,
something that,
respiratory.
yeah, it's still it affects everybody,
You got
that
a
was
front.
down there.
You guys got a front row seat, right? A front row seat to one of the most significant events in recent history, I would say.
Yes,
All
yeah.
right, that's incredible, Keith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But today, again, today, it is, it's made a bond, with us. And again, we all still try to keep in touch and
Mm-hmm.
talk. And it's like anything, it's like reminiscing. It's like high school. The Mercantile, go back to the good things, was like a big locker room. And,
Mm-hmm.
and it was gym class, or you're an athlete,
In a way, yeah.
and and again, we you go in there, and you there was a lot of fun making fun of each other. There was a lot of camaraderie. There was a lot, there was nothing, it was something that we all loved and took advantage of, because we all loved going there every day. You would never imagine so many people
Mm-hmm.
that loved their job.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just, the money was great, I have to say that, but it was what we did, to go there, and from the clerks to the people that worked in the uh, in the back office to the clearinghouse people. I mean, everybody enjoyed it there. And we were in our own, we were the blue collar financial guys. You know,
Yeah.
that was us. That basically, and there's a video out with uh, Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
that probably back in the '90s he came down, or the late in the '80s, late '80s
I
he
think I
came
saw that
down.
one. I think I
Yeah,
saw that
he
one, yeah.
came down. He came down and gave a description about what the Merc was, and he was just like, these guys are the most disgusting, everything, just everything about us. And
Yeah, I saw that
yeah,
one.
we were, that was us. We, you know, we didn't take shit from anybody, uh, and each other. But again, we were the first ones to, you can't hit him. I can hit him. You can't hit him. But
Yeah.
I'm going to protect him. And that's, it was
It's
great.
like
But it was
a
great. It
like
was
a
a
big fat
fraternity.
house.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So back to trading, right? And I'm sure a lot of our audience are, finance curious people. So what's the alpha? What's the easiest way to make money in commodities?
Well, I don't think there's an easy way to make money in anything. I think what it comes down to is, uh, the biggest thing that helped me is risk management. And that is really, everyone's going to be. I don't care the smartest guy in the world is still going to be wrong at some point. No one's right 100%. And but the biggest thing that people have to learn is manage your risk. And I have gone from trading bigger to trading smaller. I've had my great times, I've had my bad times. But the thing that I've always been as a trader is just controlling my risk and knowing, my out, and not, shooting for the stars right away. It's not it's not a sprint. It's a very long term, and you just get better and learn things every day. I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly, listening to other people in their, with their these chat rooms, looking at their ideas, trying to
Do,
look at
do you
repetition.
do you just mainly talk to people, or do you have signals that you rely on, like
I have
indicators?
I have my own I have my own signals that I rely on, and I do my work, and I constantly are altering them and looking at new stuff, you know, uh, basic technical, analysis that I looked at, that I've been doing since I started probably before I even traded commodities. Again, it's the chart. You look at the chart, but right now commodities, certain things besides gold, which is you're risking against, the market goes down. Of course, gold, is the flight to safety. uh, it becomes a hedge in that sense. As something like now with with President Trump, getting in, the price of crude oil, of course, was going to start to head down a little bit more. Uh, that happened over the past couple of weeks because they're going to start drilling more. They have a ton of oil out there. We have the biggest reserves. And
Hmm.
once they start able to start drilling again, it's inevitable. Price isn't good. Price of gas is not going to go up. It's going to go down.
Yeah,
But these oil companies are still going to make it. They're still going to make a lot of money.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's funny. People understand like how what did like in Dubai, when they built everything, that at the time was based on a certain price of oil too when they
Hmm.
started building. And that was based at probably like around $12 a barrel oil at the time. And then one time crude oil was trading $150,
Yeah.
and they were building with that. It was basically free money for them, when they were doing this. And with, that's why, everything overseas, everything's like, they need to drill to produce oil for, to pay bills and, for anybody, especially
I,
like,
I, I'm pretty optimistic on oil with new Trump administration. Do you think Bitcoin is a type of commodity? How do you mentally?
the Bitcoin type of commodity. Well, Bitcoin is definitely in the past year has gone from 0 to 100 in what favorable to people, and it's becoming a commodity. Uh, I don't know if everyone knows exactly how to uh, work with it.
Model?
Yeah, monetarily, with stuff. I think there's a lot of people that just aren't educated on the Bitcoin.
Hmm.
People understand gold. They understand precious metals. That's standard. People understand oil. People understand coffee, sugar, cocoa. People understand, meats and bonds, futures. Bitcoin is something that I don't know how, you know, I mean, yeah, the administrative wants to use it and they put it into the financial system, it'll become more of an asset. But it's very hard for me right now to know, at I think just my knowledge of it is basic and not as experienced uh, with it as a hedge in certain aspects.
It
Uh,
hasn't behaved like a hedge. It has behaved pretty risk on, I would say. Like if you look
yeah,
at,
it has. It definitely has.
yeah,
There's a way, like again, what I do now with Bitcoin. There's different companies that trade right now, and if anything happens, like uh, MSTR,
yeah,
coin,
that's a whole different conversation. Michael
that's
Saylor's cracked the code.
yeah, and then and just any of these companies that are associated with it, you can sort of trade with them or against them for any type of news items with that. But I'm not really as experienced, I think, using it as a commodity right now. Personally, I'm definitely learning more and more about it. This something with how to trade it, and as it is becoming more popular and getting to be such a bigger asset out there, you'll definitely it'll expand in a lot of ways to different aspects that will affect
I think it's also a generational thing. I think it's like a lot of younger people trading crypto and
totally
then, yeah.
100%. We just I'm definitely in that older generation of people that we definitely you know have to take a little bit longer to learn things, because we're so used to doing things one way. Again, when I was on the floor, everything was done by hand. And then
Yeah.
when we went, and it's funny, just to go back to that, when we transitioned, we had handheld computers,
Hmm.
and half the guys in the room in the floor did, and half the guys didn't. And then what happened was the guys that had the computers, we had an advantage the guy
Hmm.
standing next to me who didn't have a computer. And then eventually everyone realized, okay, we have to comply. As much as you wanted to fight it, it had to comply. And then basically everyone had a computer. And then when that happened, basically our edge was gone.
Hmm.
The human edge that we had was eliminated and everything is computers. And then you figured out, again, you had to use your brain a little more. And now as a trader, it doesn't matter what it is. I could look at a chart, and if everything lines up the way I want it to be, a buyer or a seller, then I'll trade it. Uh, it could be a future. It could be anything. It could be S&P futures. I trade a lot of natural gas. The problem with the futures now is that it's just the algorithms, the black boxes are just in control of those. So you're sort of better off trading, ETFs or stocks that are associated with the crude oil, the gold, just because it's a little bit more under control.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're gonna lose money just because one day it's gonna open up, and then the next day it's gonna open up a lot lower, and then with the stock it's a little more in control. The futures is sometimes it just can be all over the place unless you catch a run, and or in either direction. I mean, crude oil had that whole thing where it dumped, where it was negative, years
Hmm.
ago, and you know
That was crazy.
that was a crazy thing. But
I had a conversation with a friend. I was like, why don't, when it was negative, why don't you buy an oil tanker and set it on fire? You get paid for doing
yeah,
that,
you could.
right?
And a lot of people did, and you knew it was coming back. Crude oil wasn't going to be
Yeah,
negative. So,
yeah,
so the guys that took advantage of that,
almost made a killing.
very smart, but they took a lot of risk. It's like anything, like I said before, it's managing risk. How do you become a
Oh, for
successful
sure.
trader? My whole thing when I started was I was taught, you know, uh, it doesn't matter how much you make, just
Don't
just don't
lose.
lose.
Yeah,
Just don't lose. And if you are going to
that's
lose, make it small, and then you can build. Again, now
yeah,
I've had pluses and minuses, and I was out with a bunch of traders last night. We had this conversation, and one guy
that's
was
yeah,
complaining a little bit real quick, and we just said to him, trade smaller.
for sure.
Don't stop trading, just trade smaller.
That's a very good point to end. Where